fantasy and some flights, exploring the realms of beer, board games, books, and bourbon.
Welcome to another episode of Fireside and Some Flights. I'm Nelson.
I'm Dalton. I was so I'm still thrown off when you say Fireside and Some Flights. I love it. I love the name, but I'm still he didn't do it right.
Yeah, right. I was saying it. I was like, this doesn't feel right. I think I need to change this.
Yeah, you have to mentally.
And then I hesitated, and then I looked at you, and I was like, wait, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think we're good.
Yeah, this is a Fireside episode.
This is a Fireside episode, which if you didn't listen to the first one, shame. And
why are you listening out of order?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it inherently, but it is confusing.
The other episodes, mainly the book episodes, it could make a difference if you listen out of order.
True. That's true.
But Fireside, we're just talking about random stuff. So it really doesn't.
That's true.
Still, what kind of monster are you? Obviously, I'm joking. You're not a monster. But yeah, so Fireside episodes, we're kind of what we're doing is we're just kind of talking about things that we love. So we don't really have a set topic. We'll just kind of talk through what we've been doing, maybe what we've been playing, what we've been reading, and then answer some icebreakers.
Yeah.
So, but as always, we are drinking because we did not take some flights out of the title of the episode.
That's right.
Very intentional. Very intentional.
That's a really good point. That's the only part of the title that didn't change.
But yeah, so Dalton, what are you drinking tonight?
Tonight I'm drinking Taxman Brewing Company's Bourbon Barrel Qualified, and so this was one that you had picked up in a pick six for me, and probably the one I was most excited to try.
Yeah, I mean anything with bourbon and beer in the title is probably up your alley.
Right, exactly.
Be drinking some beer, yeah,
exactly. So this is a Belgian style quad, and it's aged in bourbon barrels, and so quads are always super malty. They're thick and warm. This one's 10%
alcoholic.
So, yeah. Exactly. Spot on. And it has that little bit of bourbon flavor coming in at the end. So it is a really tasty
awesome
beer. I'm really enjoying this one.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'll see next time I go to the store. I'll see if they have any more. Maybe I'll pick up another one so I can try one.
Yeah.
But
you are right that it's right up my alley. So what about you?
Oh, good. So I'm drinking the classic, the fantastic Elijah Craig.
Yeah.
So Elijah Craig small batch is, I think, probably one of the first bourbons I ever had, outside of just shit bourbon that someone poured in a drink or something. But Elijah Craig it's a straight bourbon, which means that it's been aged in the charred oak barrel for at least 2 years. Hey. See, that's I was paying attention.
You were.
And it doesn't actually say how long it's been aged on this bottle, so probably just 2 years. So
if it doesn't say it on there, it has to be at least 4. If it's between 2 and 4, it has to. So I think Elijah Craig is right at 4 or something. I think they hit the 4.
So I was not paying attention apparently. So I apologize.
No, you're fine. Because you're right. I think we actually had Elijah Craig on the whiskey episode, if I remember right. I think we had Elijah Craig and Booker's as the 2 bourbons.
Yeah, I love Elijah Craig. I didn't realize that this is 47%. It's a 94 proof.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it was that high
yeah.
in alcohol content, but I really can't taste it. It's just so smooth. So I don't know what that is, because a lot of the other ones that are kind of up this high in the proof, I need to water down or something.
Right. Yeah, I think we had the Rabbit Hole
really
rye the other on one of the on a recent episode, and it's in that proof range, and you can kind of taste it.
Yeah,
and that's a $45 bottle, and Elijah Craig's $30. So some sort of witchcraft and wizardry is going on.
And I think I said before that I don't think I have a 4 Cheers. I lied. Elijah Craig is a 4 Cheers. This is one of these that I will have in my house at all times.
Yeah.
Just because it's at any point during the night when I'm not, maybe not my first drink, but it'll probably hit the glass at some point in the night. So
for sure.
I do love me some Elijah Craig.
You're right. It's basically our official beer or official whiskey of the Fantasy and Fights podcast.
Pretty much, yeah. So Dalton, what have you been playing recently?
So good question, Nelson. So if you listen to the most recent episode, the trivia episode with Mike, that first of all was a ton of fun to record. Probably my first.
Yeah, I think it was probably about to say exactly what probably my favorite to record so far.
Probably. But as a part of that, we all like kind of took some PTO and we like made a weekend out of it. And so right at the top of my like things I wanted to discuss tonight, Mike, bless his heart, is a very cutthroat like board game player, like compared to us anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we actually play a lot of cutthroat board games, right? Like we play a lot of, maybe not as much as we would want to, but we do play like Through the Ages, which is very cutthroat. We play Food Chain Magnate. We also tried 18
Which
Chesapeake.
we learned is horribly cutthroat.
Right. Like we always talk about how cutthroat it is, but we're all actually like kind of like big softies when it comes to like...
Oh, my sweet summer child.
Exactly.
You had no idea.
Right. And so just having a player who like came into the game, like, I'm just going to mess these dudes day up. Like that's my goal today, is just to like mess with people. And I found it like so enjoyable and like so refreshing to just be like, okay, like someone is actively attacking my engine, and like in these like cutthroat
It's
games.
different.
It's very different. I think especially again in like a game that is like built to kind of reward that, like 18 Chesapeake, which we tried for the first time, or Food Chain Magnate. And I think we talk a lot about Food Chain Magnate, but if you haven't listened to one recently where we described actually like what it is, you're basically running a fast food chain restaurant in the 50s or 60s kind of era, that kind of aesthetic. You have to pay like for marketing, and so you'll market like burgers or pizza or lemonade or whatever to different areas of the board where there are these little houses, these little neighborhoods, and they get kind of a supply built up on top of them from your marketing. But then you have to come in and actually sell to them with your own produced demand. And so the thing that Mike did that none of us had ever done before is he went in and bought employees that allowed him to like slash his prices, because significantly because the buyers will always buy from whoever is selling the cheapest because they're like reasonable. I don't know.
Yeah, they're normal.
Yeah, they're normal consumers. And so all of a sudden, like we are all kind of used to like, okay, I'm going to be the burger guy and he's going to be the pizza guy, and we're all just going to make these massive engines and try and see how much money we get. All of a sudden, there was somebody coming in selling everything at like very, very low prices, and all of us started just bottoming out on income. It's like, I can't pay my people. Like, I don't like, what am I going to do to get out from under this? So it just kind of forced us to like, I don't know. My experience was, I'm interested to hear yours. Like it just forced me to think of like the game in like a totally new way, where I always thought that was a possibility, but I'd never thought through like, but if it happened, what would I do?
Yeah. And like we have lowered our prices before, but not to the level that Mike did. I think by like 4 or 5 rounds in, he was down to $6 or $7, which like probably is normal. But so you start at 10 and then you can discount from there. But the problem is that the game length is completely based on how much money is in the bank. Mm-hmm. And so when you're selling for half the price of normal, you're just not pulling money out of the bank as much, so it extends the game. And so that was kind of interesting. But like we got in this price war, and like there was a round where I was selling, I think, for $4. I think that was my lowest. Yeah. And I was lucky enough to have kind of the milestones, which are things that you can pick up, where every like hamburger and every pizza I sold was $5 extra. And so that it was nice to have that because that was supplementing my income. But there were a couple of rounds where I like counted it out. I was like, I lost money this round. Like I sold more than anybody, but I sold at such a small price, and I have so many salaried employees that like I think I added money into the bank this game.
Yeah. So I made the game longer this turn.
Yeah, and it was just really interesting to see. It's also like really cool. Like I feel like that is probably a strategy, but it's not something that I had ever really kind of thought of. Mm-hmm. Which like I had thought of like lowering prices, but going like complete rock bottom. Mm-hmm. It's just something. It was just fun to be able to react to that.
Yeah, it sort of created like a war of attrition, where like because there was a time where you were selling everything, and like I remember that turn where you at the end of the turn you're like, I lost money this turn, and I was like looking at me and Mike, and it was like not compared to what we lost this turn, and we had significantly less money in our banks, and so it was creating a situation where it was like, we're gonna have to start firing people, right? Like you are, yes, you're losing money, but you're also running your competition out of business. And so it was like a very actually like accurate representation of what can happen to businesses and even though you were running out of money, you were still able to like take a turn to like make hires to like continue to build your engine, where we were having to divert our resources to just survive, So that war of attrition kind of like adds up where all of a sudden like 2 turns after that, you have like these really massive turns and now you're kind of ahead of the curve and you are making money, where we're still kind of like trying to claw back and just make a slight profit, just make some shareholder happy somewhere.
just something somewhere.
Right.
And I thought that was interesting because the 3 of us were kind of playing that game. And then my wife, she was able to grab Guru, which allows you to train workers really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And she bought just a bunch of waitresses, which just give you a subtle income each round.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was able to run that. And then she picked up the CFO, which adds 50% of your money that you collect that round to your to your bank. So you get 50% increase. And so like she wasn't selling a lot, but she was like making more money than us because of all of her waitresses. Yeah. She was just like, had a stack of waitresses. And she's like, my waitresses are making me, I think it was like $30 or $35 each round.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, okay. And then like she was able to start selling because she was marketing just a bunch and she was just picking up anything that was left over.
Yeah.
And so it was just,
and that was the interesting,
like we had
like because at that point everybody had sold out already. So it was no longer a bid of who has the lowest price, right? Because there was demand and she was the only one that could supply. So the rest of us were selling at like $4 or $5 and she sold at full price. So even though she sold less, she did sell at full price.
Yeah, it was just a super fascinating game all around. I did really enjoy it at 4 players.
For sure. It was long.
I think that it was long. And I think that had a couple of things. Like we're still fairly new to the game. Mike, it was his first time playing. And also we weren't really taking money out of the bank.
Yeah.
Because our prices were so low.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, there were turns that elongated the game by adding money to the bank.
I think that I would like to try it at 4. I think 3 is also a good player count, but it really added to just like a bunch of different strategies and just kind of how they work together. I just thought I really enjoyed that play of Food Chain Magnate.
For sure. For sure. Were you happy with your first play of 18 Chesapeake?
Oh, yeah. I was floored by how much I like that game.
Yeah.
So
it's been on your list
Chesapeake
for over a year. I think like since we started the podcast, you've been talking about playing 18 Chesapeake.
Yeah, absolutely. You've probably heard me talk about it before, but so 18 Chesapeake is a game in a series of game or like a theme of game called 18XX games. And these games are literally kind of about owning and manipulating companies that are building rail tracks across a certain area of the map. And so 18 Chesapeake kind of looks at, I think it's like the Midwest/Northeast area of the United States. And there are 8 companies that all kind of operate on this map. And like you don't necessarily sit down and say, I'm just going to say Reading Rainbow just because I know it's going to make Mike mad. But you don't sit down and you don't say that I'm playing this railroad company. What you do is you buy into the company, you invest into the company. And if you are the one that has invested the most, then you get to operate that company. And so there were a lot of times during that game where companies would change hands because you can sell your investments in the company. And if you're no longer the majority holder, then that company literally gets transferred. You pick up their player card and move it to another player who now has the majority. And so there were a lot of really intricate plays there. Yeah. Where I know you tossed me a company at one point. I know Mike tried to change some companies. And so just kind of seeing how that affect future plays, I just and you get to manipulate the stock market. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, we had more like dumping a company on someone. Like I don't think we had any intentional company takeovers, right? I don't think anybody, and maybe that was part of that was probably like play style. Like I think a couple of us like bought into a company and bought like 5 or 6 shares of it, which 6 is the most that you can buy. There are 10 in the game. And if you have a majority, you operate the company. And then like the first time you buy in, you get the card where you get like a president card or something, and you're basically the tiebreaker. So if like I have 4, but I was the first one to buy in, and then Nelson buys 4, I maintain operation of the company. And so we never had like a surprise takeover where somebody like was able, but mostly that was because people were like either so far ahead in stocks because they like wanted to get the company like floated in order for the company to operate at all, like play on the board. It has to get a 60% buy-in. So most of the time players were making that happen. They were just like buying like 4 stocks into a company and then looking at the other players on the board and hoping that they contributed to like float the company. But you're totally right. Like the operator of the company inherits sort of responsibilities for the debt, if there is any, or if there's any coming up. And so that became a major mechanic for us in our playthrough of kind of dumping a company when it looked like a big debt was going to come up and the company wasn't going to be able to pay for it. And so I would be interested to see if in other plays, if that's kind of the majority of where we stay, is it like in that strategy, or if there becomes a strategy of like kind of having the bare minimum to have operational control, like maybe just only 3 stocks, or 3 shares, and does somebody kind of initiate like a takeover to actually like take it from you?
I've been thinking about it where maybe you buy in at 3 or 4 and you don't secure the lead because if you have 50% of the company or 5 shares, then you have secured the lead. No one can actually take it from you.
Right.
Assuming you bought into it at first. So I think that it would be kind of interesting to go like 3 or 4 and like have the company float because someone else has invested into it. Mm-hmm. And then if someone takes it over at that point, they bought more shares than you did, then that's okay for you, because when money is paid out each round, it gets paid out proportional to how much you've invested into the company. Mm-hmm. And so if you're sitting there at 3 or 4 shares to 30 or 40% of the company and someone buys you out, you know that they invested a lot to take over that company, so it's probably going to be in good hands, and then you're getting paid out 30 to 40% of their profits each turn. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the plays that we did is people would float companies. They would buy 50 or 60% of the company, and then we would take a look and see, oh, they are operating this company efficiently. I'm going to buy into it at that point. Mm-hmm. Later in the game, then those stocks would be very well contested amongst all the players. And so I thought it'd be kind of interesting to kind of reverse that. Mm-hmm. And say like, hey, this is very vulnerable. I'm starting to build up this company. It looks pretty good. It's a really good investment opportunity for you. And if you buy me out, I'm actually not that upset because I'm still heavily invested in it. And since you bought it out from under me, I know that you're not going to like run it into the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, and there aren't that many mechanics to like actually run a company into the ground. Like there aren't that many mechanics to like set up a company to do something that's bad for it, I guess, if that makes sense.
And the game kind of self-balances because you have the option to sell shares. So if you don't like if I didn't like how you were running a company, which would never happen, of course, but like if I didn't
I'm a
like how you
genius
were running
CEO,
a company,
that would never happen. But
yeah, exactly. Except for that one time you dumped the green trains on me.
Yeah.
Which worked out.
Right. We decided that me dumping a company on you won me the game. But
yeah. Which was kind of cool. It felt kind of interesting because it felt so tight that we could point to one move that decidedly won you the game.
Yeah.
Which I thought was just kind of cool.
Yeah.
But that is a game that it took about 6 hours, mm-hmm. which 18xx games do have kind of the reputation of taking 6 to 10 to 12 hours depending on the game. Chesapeake is supposed to be a shorter one, so people say that you can complete it in probably about 3 to 4 hours. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that was just not knowing the rules, needing to figure all of that out. And then also afterwards, we found a companion app that would help you count up all your links or like how much money you can get from running trains, which that probably right there, that companion app would probably cut off an hour or 2 of the game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There was a big,
so much time counting.
Yeah. A criticism of the game. There's a big time sink in, there's all these routes available. If I visit all these different cities, I get so much money from like these different cities. So what's the most profitable route for me to run based on the distance that my train can go and like the areas that I have access to? And because there's so many options there, that took a long time to figure out on everybody's turn. And so there would be like all of us were crowded around the table like, I don't know, it's either like $350 or $360. Just like take the 360. Yeah. Like, I don't know,
Yeah. Even if I didn't find that app, or Mike found the app, even if Mike didn't find the app, so next time we play, we have it, I would definitely just write it down because like there were multiple times where we just count the same thing round after round.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, okay, like we ran 350 and the next round, nothing on the board really changed with that rail or that company's rail lines. So it's like, what are we looking at now? And we just count it again where it's like, okay, nothing changed. It's still 350. Like, let's just go. So.
Yeah. But definitely, like, from the weekend, top game I want to, like, play again.
Oh, yeah. And we did find the online implementation. So we're going to have to do that because Mike went back to Iowa. So it's going to be hard to get an in-person game here soon with him again. So we'll definitely do that. Speaking of online games, I guess by the time you hear this, we will have already had our monthly game night.
Yeah.
We have not yet had that, but I'm excited for that. What do you know kind of what's going on with that?
Yeah.
What do we get to play?
Yeah, so it's the second Saturday of every month. And so month of February, it's coming up this coming weekend, which will be last weekend if you're listening to the episode the day it comes out. It's looking good. We're depending on how, if we get a couple more responses, we will end up with either 2 or 3 tables. It looks like Spirit Island will definitely be played. Spirit Island is like very much wanting
as it
to
should be.
Yeah, right. It is very much wanting to be played. A couple more that are like on the docket, or at least like kind of in second place. We're looking at Brass Birmingham, which would be really fun. Another economy game
I would
kind
love
of
to play
cutthroat.
Brass.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Brass is one that I think I would like to play now that I've like played games with a really cutthroat person and enjoyed it. I would like to try Brass with someone who's like kind of mean at the table. I think that could be really that
would be
really
interesting.
Fun. Through the Ages is like making a run at it. That could definitely hit the table. And
that's
then,
another thing that we finished up this weekend. We played Through the Ages on the app. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you have to play it on the app.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's not worth not playing on the app.
Right. Yeah, the app makes it a lot faster. And then Wingspan. Wingspan's making a run at it, which we haven't like talked about Wingspan in, I don't even know, like 6 months maybe. It was this huge fad. We were playing it all the time, and then we like kind of dropped out of it. But it would be fun to go back to Wingspan.
It would be. I don't even think I ever talked about it on the podcast, but the new Oceania expansion for Wingspan is out, which is kind of like the Australian area of the world birds, and that expansion I think is even better than the European expansion. So if you had to pick one, I would definitely go with Oceania. It kind of balances out the egg strategy. So there's a certain strategy where if you just lay a ton of eggs, it seemed really powerful. So it balances that out a little bit. And then it also adds a lot of player interaction, not necessarily like a take that mechanism, but it adds kind of like, if your opponent has this resource, then you get this resource from the supply, or other mechanisms similar to that, where because that is one of the complaints of Wingspan, is that it's a very solitary game, and the Oceania expansion kind of shifts that a little bit, and it's no longer that solitary play, which is nice.
Yeah, I could see. I think the game definitely needed some of that, so I could see that being a really valuable expansion.
What about what have you been reading? Have you been?
Oh yeah,
I know Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan, you guys were concerned, or you guys were sad that it's taken a little hiatus. I still haven't watched any of the 4th season, but
yeah. Oh, it did come back. We were just wrong about. It was like either a day late, or we were just wrong about the day, because I always watch it on Monday, right? So I don't know if it comes out on Saturday or Sunday. So they did continue releasing, which is good. We thought that they were going to take a break between like the two kind of like story arcs, but they did not. So they're still releasing. And then my girlfriend and I also like started it from the beginning, which has been really enjoyable just to watch how thoroughly consistent that series is. Because there are so many like reveals in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th seasons that you can go back and watch the first season, and it's entirely consistent, where characters act exactly how you would expect them to act, knowing now what you know.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I don't know how they did that, like, because it was just it was a manga that they made into a TV show, right? So I don't know. They must have just copied it exactly, or maybe they had a conversation with the author. I don't know how they did it, but they did a really great job of that.
I'm really excited to watch season 4, because season 3 was fantastic. Like so I think season 4 will be the last season of Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Which is also like, it's sad, but it's also kind of nice. Like I like there to be an end in sight for a lot of these shows. Like you have watched a lot of the One Piece or the Naruto, which have 700 plus episodes.
Yeah.
And that's just a huge commitment.
Right.
Whereas like Full Metal Alchemist, Death Note, and now like Attack on Titan, they have like shortened as in like 70 to 80 episodes, but like shortened release arcs. And so I'm excited to see how this ends up, because they got a lot of explaining to do.
Right. I have heard that they have, or I have read rather, that they have started releasing the dubbed episodes, but they're not on Hulu. So I'm not entirely sure where to find them. I think you can find them on like Funimation's website, who are like, they're one of the big like producing studios. So it'll have ads and everything, but if you had like access to just like Funimation.com, I'm pretty sure you could find it there.
Well, I know what I'm doing this weekend.
Right. I think it's just like
me.
Yeah. I think it's just a couple that they've released so far, but you can start finding it. So it's
very
really
cool.
good. I've also started Mistborn: A Secret History.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, we were talking about this weekend.
Yeah. So this is a book I have to be very careful talking about. You can read. It's basically actually like a novella or something. Like the audiobook is on the scale of like 5.5 hours. It's like very short.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. That's easy to digest.
Yeah, it's very worth like jumping into. It is a story that you can only read if you have read the original trilogy. So if you're into like the three of them. So if you're into the Wax and Wayne series, you can read it at any time. It doesn't matter, as far as I can tell and from what I've read. But I'm only like halfway through it. But it is a story that centers around Kelsier. So if you like Kelsier as a character, you can read it because it is really enjoyable. But just know that it only functions given information that is revealed in the second and third book of the original trilogy, The Well of Ascension and The Hero of Ages.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So you can read it, Nelson.
Yeah. I need to do that. I didn't realize that we had it. I never know what we have anymore.
Right.
But I am excited to try that out because I'm gonna transition to I'm still reading through Rhythm of War for the first time, which is another Brandon Sanderson book in the same Cosmere universe. Mm-hmm. We need to like get like Fantasy and Some Flights or Cosmere fanboy shirts or something like that. Yeah, right. Because I would be all about that. But this is not going to spoil anything for either Mistborn or Stormlight, so don't stress out about that. But Brandon Sanderson at the beginning of each chapter does a little excerpts from different characters, different books, something from the series that kind of tells like a separate story.
Yeah, sort of like what he does in Mistborn with like the Lord Ruler's diaries. Yeah.
Yep. So the beginning of Rhythm of War, there's a character that is like the excerpts are from a lecture that she gives all about on how to create fabrials, which fabrials in this universe there's a heat fabrial, and it's like you capture a heat spren, and then the fabrial is like a device that makes heat. Or there are different fabrials that help you communicate basically the spren embody emotions or physical attributes, and you can capture them and then like use them as a perpetual source of that energy. They're just all over the place. They're very common to the world. But the beginning of Rhythm of War, the excerpts are all about how to create fabrials, which I thought was super interesting. And I need to read you some of these because it has heavy ties into Mistborn as well. And so it kind of starts out, and all of this is going to be a little paraphrased. It's going to be a little paraphrased because I removed all the spoilers and everything.
Yeah.
But so it says, with a captured spren, you may begin designing a proper fabrial. It is closely guarded secret of artifabrians that the spren, when trapped, responds to different types of metals in different ways. So a bronze cage can create a warning fabrial, alerting one to objects or entities nearby. A pewter cage will cause the spren of your fabrial to express its attribute in force. A tin cage will cause a fabrial to diminish nearby attributes. An iron cage will create an attractor. Zinc wires touching the gemstone will cause the spren inside to move more strongly. And brass will cause the spren to withdraw and its powers to dim. Which are exact like correlations to the Mistborn metals. And so if I wasn't driving, I would have stood up at this point. Like when I started like realizing what was happening, I'm just like, holy shit. They're gonna be like, there's gonna be a crossover here at some point, and I'm so excited.
My crossover senses are tingling.
Exactly. So, oh man, I was reading through that, and then Rhythm of War is full of Cosmere tie-ins.
Yeah.
And so it's happening. It's happening.
That is exciting.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Now this is pod racing.
Pod racing is not in Rhythm of War.
No, not at all. Unfortunately. I was just like reading through those. I thought that would be really interesting to talk about, especially since we just finished up like our Mistborn episode.
Yeah.
And to kind of go into our Fireside and continue to continue to try and pitch you to read Stormlight Archives.
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty strong pitch at this point. Oh, I did want to mention about Mistborn Secret History. So it does this very... I don't know who produced this audiobook, but it's a little different. And so I want to like we usually recommend reading audiobooks or listening to audiobooks because we enjoy that like it paints a really good picture in your mind and you can do other things and it makes reading really accessible, like driving or doing chores or what have you.
Yeah.
This audiobook specifically is framed as they call themselves like a movie in your mind. So I forget the name of the like company. I should have written it down.
Interesting.
But it says, it's like blah blah blah, a movie in your mind or whatever. And it's like, okay, let's see how this goes. And it's like actually really disorienting because so first of all they're like narrated by so and so, voice performances by, and they listed like 20 people. And it's like, holy cow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that part I was like, wow, this is like really cool. But then what they do is like the dude will be like narrating it. And then there's like a different dude who voices, like I said, the book kind of centers around Kelsier. There's a dude who voices Kelsier. And so like in the scene, if Kelsier like falls down, then the narrator will like keep talking and say like Kelsier fell down. And Kelsier's voice will go like, ugh. And it'll be like, thump, 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 thump,
awesome.
like just random noise in the background. And there's like swelling music in like every scene, like going up and down. Like there's always music playing in the background. And then like Kelsier, it'll be like Kelsier heard like this person speak, but he couldn't understand what they said. And then it'll be like some other voice actor, and like they'll be like just like in the background of the track. And then there's like explosions and like someone gets stabbed, and it's like. And like because there's so many voice actors, like they're not the best,
Yeah.
Because they had to get like 20 people, so they're like kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, I think. I hope none of them ever listen to this episode. I'm
excited for this.
I know. Right?
Yeah.
So it gets like I'm
so excited.
It gets like a little campy where somebody is just like making this ridiculous like I'm dying sound or something, and it's like okay, this is kind of actually like breaking my immersion. I'm getting like less immersed into this story than if it was just like a guy who like did the voices.
I'm so pumped.
Yeah. You kind of understood, like, I don't know. I expect only so much from one guy, but now it's like a full production, and it just sounds like a really campy full production. So
that's awesome.
It's only 5.5 hours again, so like maybe that's something you enjoy. Go get the audiobook. But again, it's also only 5.5 hours, so it's probably just like pamphlet size. It's probably not that hard to read.
Yeah.
Like a physical copy. So I think personally, it's maybe not my favorite. I would probably, in retrospect, read a physical copy, but. Listening to at least like 20 minutes of it is very entertaining.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I am 100% all in.
You're on board. Then you will
so on board.
You will like Mistborn Secret History, the audiobook.
Perfect. So we've been talking for a while. Let's do one icebreaker. Let's knock out an icebreaker.
Yeah, why not?
Sound good? So
yeah,
the upcoming episode, we're going to be talking all about expansions.
Mm-hmm.
So expansions to board games, what we like, what we don't like, and then give some recommendations.
Yeah.
Leading into that, I came up with an icebreaker. So I know we have some user submitted ones, but I'm the one recording, so I'm going to say mine.
I'm in charge.
So I also did not cut out any of your correct answers from the trivia episode.
Oh,
I know I talked about doing that, but I didn't do that.
You have to. I get credited for everything. That's because you beat me in like the tiebreaker question. So, like if you had like cut out questions prior, it would have been suspicious.
Yeah, exactly. So my icebreaker question, I guess it's kind of more of a. I don't know. It feels kind of different than our normal icebreaker questions, but it's kind of like it's going to be like a kind of a one-word answer, but I want you to kind of like talk through it a little bit. So when you have games, it's like board games, like we have fairly large board game collections. Are you more excited about getting a new game, so a new game to learn, a new game to put on your shelf, or an expansion to a previous game that you already own, and then why? So so
you're going to start talking about your own answer to the question.
Yes. I want you to talk about it first real quick.
Yeah. So So I will say I'm going to lock in the answer of a new game. However,
okay.
It's because it's a skewed it's like a skewed spectrum, right? Where for like games that I like, it's like nice. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna like try something like new. But like for my favorite games, Like I am so excited. Like when Twilight Imperium puts out a new expansion, I am so excited to try it.
Yeah, that's really fair.
And see like what it, like that is some of my top excitement is it just in terms of like like just absolute value, right? Like top excitement levels are expansions to my favorite games. But I also buy expansions for just like other games that I own that I'm like, I think this game could be better, and I think that this expansion fixes something, so like I'll go ahead and buy it. But I'm not like typically all that like excited for it. Whereas like normally when I get a new game, I'm like, oh, this is exciting, like a new game. I just got Trekking the World. I just got Quacks of Quedlinburg. I just got Deception, which I've already played, but like I really want to try it with my family, and so there's like all these like every time I make a purchase, there's a reason for it. And so that like reason for it like generates kind of an average level of excitement, if that makes sense. And that is consistently higher than the average level of excitement for an expansion. Although the average although like the excitement level for an expansion can get higher by the end of it.
Okay. I see that. So it's kind of like the expansions are the extremes, whereas the new board games are the consistent excitements.
Right. Yeah. The consistent high versus, the extremes of high.
Yeah. No, okay. I can see that. I definitely when I first started collecting, I would buy any and every single expansion that came out, and if I had a choice, I would definitely rather get an expansion to a game that I already know and love. And I think that has shifted to new games. And so like I do really enjoy getting new games as shown by like the 10 on my shelf that I haven't played. So I mean like it's gotten to like a problem almost, like where I just keep buying games and I like want to play more and I want to play all the new games, and like I'm at the point where like I get more excited for a new game, but I want to be more excited for expansions. So I've been kind of like thinking about that, where I'm looking at some of these games that I love. I'm trying to think of some just kind of off the top of my head, but like I just recently like picked up Rails to the North for Great Western Trail, which fantastic expansion, but like I was more excited for a game that I never played. And so I think it kind of ties into one of the buzzwords that goes around the community is the cult of the new. People want to play the new stuff, the new games, and like everyone thinks that they're great, fantastic. New games can do no wrong. But it's like sometimes like grabbing that expansion or replaying that old game is just hits that sweet spot. So
it is cool how like an expansion can either bring like new life to a game that you already loved that maybe you haven't been playing as much of, kind of like rekindled your interest or excitement in it. Like that's always really cool.
Yeah, it really can do that. And like we'll get into it a little bit more next week, but like the different types of expansions I think kind of play into it. Like is it just more content? Is it changing up the gameplay? Is it there are expansions out there that make a game fully cooperative rather when it used to be competitive? And just so things like that I think all kind of play into it, but I love both of them, but right now I'm kind of I want new games where I know my wife definitely wants expansions, or if I'm going to buy something, make it an expansion to a game that we already have. Yeah.
Especially if you know going forward that like you're going to be playing more of this game anyway. Maybe it's a game that's just like a go-to for you. Then it's kind of like a safe buy, right? Like you're just upping an experience that you down the road know you're going to have multiple like experiences with. And you're just kind of like enhancing that or something like that. So,
but yeah, so that is just something that I've been thinking about with the expansion episode coming up. We kind of want to know your thoughts, so we'll throw this in the Discord on Instagram to try and poll. Like, do you rather have new games or expansion games, and kind of why? Let us know. So, you can find us on any of the social medias. The main ones that we will check and probably get back to you the soonest would be like Instagram and Discord. If you reach out to us on Twitter, we check that about once a week. No, I'm just kidding. but really, like if you want to talk to us, your best shots are Instagram or Twitter. So I'm sorry, Instagram or Discord, not Twitter. But
be thinking about expansions. Be thinking about your favorite ones per genre, or your ones for specific games, because that's what we'll be hitting on next week. So with a special guest actually. So I'll leave that little kernel for
teasing you that too. I like it.
Yeah, leave that little kernel for you to think on.
I wonder who it could be.
I wonder.
I guess we'll have to wait a week to find out.
Right.
So, as always, it's great. I'm really enjoying these Fireside episodes. So
yeah, me too.
Looking forward to more of them in the future. But for now, think we'll call this one a wrap.
Yep.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.